Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
The Disney CEO, Bob Iger, just confirmed that fewer Star Wars projects, movies, and shows will be produced in the future. At Star Wars Celebration this past year, there were several updates to the Star Wars timeline, including 3 upcoming films, the first theatrical releases since 2019, The Rise of Skywalker, and shows as well that had updates and official announcements. Bob Iger played a pivotal role in the Star Wars overall going under the Disney umbrella when the company was bought Lucasfilm in 2012. So, Iger recently returned to the House of Mouse in November of 2022, last year, after a 2-year run by former CEO Bob Chapek, and the reason for Iger coming back to replace Chapek so early on is because he kind of dropped the ball on things. Originally, Iger was set to return until at least 2025, so he still had a couple more years and was actually planning on coming back, but now his contract has recently been extended until the end of 2026. So it's safe to say that Iger will be sticking around with the company for quite some time. The ultimate goal is to find a proper predecessor and somebody that's able to take on the role as CEO as one of the Earth's biggest media and entertainment companies, Disney. As Star Wars and other shows across the board on Disney Plus have ramped up under the former CEO Bob Chapek, the company was losing over $1 billion on the streamer, as Chapek was just simply taking too much than he could chew, too many announcements and too many projects that they were trying to take on, especially with specifically Disney Plus. So recently, during a recent interview with Squawk Box, Disney CEO Bob Iger reconfirmed that the company will be spending less on what they make and are making less projects like Star Wars. When asked directly if they'll be pulling back on Marvel and Star Wars projects together, Iger simply responded with yes, saying that to both of these major, huge franchises for Marvel and Star Wars. I will say if you're a Marvel fan, I have a Marvel channel linked in the description down below. The CEO had elaborated, stating that this goes along with the company's cost containment initiative, saying that's in full quote, yep, and pull back. Not just a focus, but it's also a part of our cost containment initiative. Spending less on what we make and are making less, ending that quote right there. Really simply, straightforward putting it that if it's not making them the big bucks, and if it's not making them enough money, then they're going to pull back on it. They're going to stop producing less of it, essentially. Now, this isn't something that's necessarily new with Disney. We know Disney. They can kind of be greedy at times. We saw this most recently, I believe, with Ahsoka. Ahsoka's not even out quite yet, but talks about of a season 2 is said to have simply depend on how well and if Ahsoka season 1 performs well, as if the viewership numbers are there, they're bringing in new Disney Plus subscribers, and things of that nature, really. It's unfortunate, but at the same time, it does make sense. I don't completely agree with it, though, at the same time. And as I had also noted earlier on, this doesn't just go for just Star Wars. This is also going for Marvel and presumably some of the other branches underneath the Disney umbrella, such as maybe Pixar, National Geographic. So us Star Wars fans aren't necessarily the only ones. This isn't something that's also necessarily new when it comes to Marvel or just overall Disney. We have seen them pull back with Marvel Disney Plus projects as well. I do have to say, though, I believe that they will go and carry out with these movies, if any of them are able to get off the ground, for Star Wars that is, see if those are going to perform well. Hopefully they will, fingers crossed, and they'll be amazing. And from there, they'll continue on with more Star Wars projects. They'll see it, and it'll be proved to them that this is what people want, this is what's making them the big bucks, pretty much. Although at the same time, as I have mentioned previously before here on the channel, I find it disheartening and unfortunate that Disney much rather would focus on how much money is this going to make me, rather than focusing on the story aspects of it. Is it a good story? Is it a story that's worth telling? Is it a story that people care about? And I really believe that comes from and with the Ahsoka show specifically. I keep mentioning that because we're really close to it, but it's the same kind of thing can be applied there of a potential season 2. It's not necessarily a question of if the story requires it or if the people want it to continue. It's simply about, well, did this make us enough money this quarter? And so really into comparison, take it back maybe 10, 20 years, I don't necessarily feel that that's how movies were made. They were made based off of story aspects, the narrative, if people and the fans had cared about it. So really overall, what does this mean for the future of Star Wars? As I had quickly touched on there before, everything that was announced at Star Wars Celebration this last year, I don't believe it's going to be canceled or anything of that. I wouldn't necessarily be worried about any of that. Of course, previously before, Star Wars movies have had quite some trouble getting off the ground, even with multiple writers and directors just leaving it because they don't get enough creative control, which has always been a problem, and is really the reason that 99% of the recent Star Wars movies within like the last 4 years at this point have been canceled. That isn't necessarily Disney's fault or a money issue necessarily. The message is mixed at the time from Lucasfilm and Disney, both of them. 3 upcoming Star Wars films have already recently been announced that will release in 2026 and 2027 and so forth and so on. The respective films will focus on The First Jedi and The First Jedi Order, the return of Rey Skywalker and what happens to her and her new Jedi Order after the events of The Rise of Skywalker, and a crossover event with The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and other New Republic Disney Plus projects and characters that are of course a part of the Mandoverse. This will be the first film in development since 2019's The Rise of Skywalker, presumably. And so, since then, Star Wars has doubled down on Disney Plus with shows and projects like The Book of Boba Fett, Andor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and 2 more seasons of The Mandalorian. While currently there was a bevy of Star Wars projects in the works like Ahsoka, the Acolyte Skeleton Crew, and Andor Season 2, which are all in production and in development actively, Bob Iger's comments indicate that the company will begin to press pause on any more projects in the future. What's even more unfortunate though, however, about that is that there is no Star Wars celebration to look forward to next year with 2024. The next Star Wars celebration will take place in Japan in 2025. The reason behind that there's not going to be a Star Wars celebration held for next year is kind of unclear and unknown, and I want to say that this is kind of like the first time that they just haven't held a Star Wars celebration since like 2020 or so. And even then, before that, like I think that I want to say I could very well be wrong about it. Comment down below, correct me, whatever. There's been a Star Wars celebration like every year since like the original trilogy. Remember that Star Wars celebration wasn't always filled with, well, announcements and things like that. It was really just a gathering of a bunch of Star Wars fans and a bunch of Star Wars nerds. So we can still have our own Star Wars celebration if we all really wanted to, but anyway, hearing these news that Star Wars may be slowing down here in the next couple of years in the foreseeable future, 2024 and so forth and so on, is very unfortunate and just disheartening, quite honestly. It's a big part of everybody's life. Us Star Wars fans all look forward to it, and to see that this is the direction and the move that they're thinking about making here so far is very unfortunate, especially since it's one of their biggest franchises that they do have. I will also quickly leave you guys with this though, however, before we wrap it up here. I want to say that they've said stuff like this before in the past, and they've never really followed through with it. We keep getting Star Wars content, so no complaints on that end. So never say never. They aren't always 110% like concrete on what they're always talking about and saying. So let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, guys. I would love to hear what you guys are all thinking here. Less potential Star Wars content here in the future is what Bob Iger is saying here. I would love to hear all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And so until next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Of course, this has been Unofficial Star Wars. Have a great one, guys. May the Force be with you as always. Peace out.